A day in the life of a medieval blacksmith. In the quiet hour before sunrise, when the village is still resting and the sky is only just beginning to loosen from night into a softer gray, a medieval blacksmith slowly wakes in his small house beside the workshop, and he wakes in the same calm way he has woken on many mornings before. Without haste, without surprise, and without any thought that the day ahead will be different from the many other days that have shaped his life, because the work will be familiar. The tools will be where they always are. The fire will need to be built in the same careful way. The iron will warm and soften in the same steady heat. And his hands will move through the same quiet routine that they know so well. And so for a little while, he remains still beneath his blanket, listening to the faint and gentle sounds of the early hour, the soft settling of old wood, the distant murmur of wind passing around the corner of the house, the almost silent feeling of the world before full daylight. And after that quiet pause, he opens his eyes, slowly, letting the dim shape of the room gather around him, the low ceiling, the rough walls, the bench beside the door, the fading dark of the hearth. And he takes one slow breath, then another, and sits up, placing his feet on the wooden floor, which feels cool and familiar beneath his skin. He stays there for a moment at the edge of the bed, not because he is delaying the day, but because there is no reason to rush into it. And the morning itself is not rushing either. It is arriving little by little, with the same soft patience that belongs to so many things in village life. And after that moment, he reaches for his clothes. A plain linen shirt, a wool tunic, sturdy trousers, worn shoes that have long since taken the shape of his feet. And he dresses in silence, his hands moving in practiced ways, pulling cloth into place, tying what needs tying, smoothing what needs smoothing. And all of it is done with a kind of quiet regularity, one small motion leading easily to the next. When he's dressed, he stands, stretches lightly, feeling a little stiffness, leave his shoulders and back, then moves to the door and opens it. And the cool morning air comes in at once, soft and faintly damp, carrying with it the smell of earth, straw, wood smoke from old fires, and the gentle freshness that belongs only to the hour before sunrise. And he steps outside and stands for just a little while, breathing in the stillness of the village. The houses are dark and quiet, their windows closed, their roofs pale beneath the lingering dimness, and the path between them is empty, except perhaps for the faint mark of wheel tracks or footprints left the previous day. And above all of it, the sky is changing slowly, the darkness becoming a softer blue-gray, the first thin light gathering low in the east. And there's nothing sudden in this change, no sharp moment when night becomes day, only a long, gentle easing from one state into the other. And after a short time, he begins to walk the few steps from his house to the workshop. The blacksmith's workshop is a familiar space, made of wood and stone, with a roof darkened by smoke and time, with a dirt or stone floor worn smooth in places by many feet. And when he opens the door, the air inside is cool and still, touched by the scent of old ash, iron, charcoal, leather, and wood. And all of it feels known, deeply known, almost like another kind of home, because so much of his life has been spent within these walls. moving between the forge, the anvil, the tool rack, the workbench, the bucket of water, the pile of charcoal, and the window through which the changing light of the day can be quietly observed. The forge itself sits quiet and dark, waiting. A bed of old ash and cold charcoal resting in the hearth, and the blacksmith moves toward it slowly, beginning with the first task of the day, which is always the fire, because nothing can be shaped until the heat is ready. And in this part of the day there is no hammering yet, no iron glowing, only the soft beginning of warmth, where before there was only coolness. He gathers charcoal in steady handfuls and lays it in the forge, arranging it with the same easy care he has used so many times before. And he checks the bellows, runs a hand along the wood and leather, notices that everything is as it should be, and then he prepares the first small flame, coaxing it to life with dry tinder and ember, allowing the fire to begin in its own time. At first there's only the smallest glow, then a little thread of smoke, then a faint crackle, then a little more warmth. And as he works the bellows slowly, pressing and releasing in a steady rhythm, the fire grows stronger, taking hold among the charcoal, and the color deepens, and the workshop begins to change, not suddenly, but gently, as warmth spreads outward into the cool room, and the smell of smoke and live heat begins to mix with the older smells that are always there. He remains beside the forge for a while, feeding the early fire, pressing the bellows, then pausing, then pressing again. And this movement too has its own calm pattern, a slow, repeated breathing of the workshop itself, as if the place is waking along with him. Outside, the light continues to gather, becoming slightly clearer at the doorway and window, but still soft. And inside, the glow of the coals becomes the warm center of the room, and the blacksmith, satisfied that the fire is growing in the right way, turns to the other small tasks that belonged at the beginning of the day. He moves tools into place, not because they are far away, but because he likes the order of things. The hammer where it should be, the tongs hanging within easy reach, the small chisels and punches resting neatly together, the leather apron ready to be tied on, the water bucket full enough, the workbench clear. And each of these little acts is calm and ordinary. And because they are ordinary, they do not call attention to themselves. They simply help shape the day into something steady and usable. He ties on the apron, feeling the familiar weight of leather against his front, then returns to the forge and chooses a first piece of iron, perhaps a small rod or bar that will become something simple and useful. A hook, a hinge, a nail, or part of a tool. Because much of a blacksmith's day in a medieval village is not spent making grand objects, but plain, necessary things. Items for carts, doors, farms, homes, and horses. And there is something quiet and fitting in that, because the work itself is woven into daily life, just as bread is woven into meals, and paths are woven into movement. He places the first piece of iron into the heart of the coals and lets it begin to warm. And while it warms, he works the bellows again, slowly, drawing the fire stronger so that the heat reaches the metal evenly. And he watches with patient attention as the iron changes color, little by little, the dark surface growing first dull red, then a little brighter. And when the time is right, he lifts it with tongs and carries it to the anvil. The anvil stands solid and quiet, its surface worn smooth by many years of use, and the blacksmith sets the glowing iron upon it and begins the first light shaping of the day. His hammer rises and falls in a measured way, not violently, not with any theatrical force, but with the calm control of practiced labor. And though the sound of hammer on metal is one of the clear sounds of a smithy, in this slow, sleepy telling, even that sound belongs to a rhythm rather than a shock, a repeated tone, steady, expected, even almost lulling in its regular return. And the blacksmith lets the hammer do its work, turning the piece when needed, tapping here, striking there, not rushing, never trying to do too much before the heat fades. And when the color dims, he returns the iron to the forge, then works the bellows again, then waits. And so begins a cycle that will shape much of his day. Heat, lift, place, strike, turn, return, bellows, wait, and again, and again, and again. The morning deepens slowly around him, the doorway growing brighter, the walls becoming more clear, and with each reheating of the iron, the workshop settles more fully into its working state. Warm at the center near the forge, cooler at the edges, the air touched by the scent of hot metal, charcoal, ash, and wood, while the blacksmith continues at his task with the same even patience. Sometimes he pauses for a breath. Sometimes he wipes a hand against his apron. Sometimes he lays one tool down and picks up another. And all of this happens without drama, without conflict, without any moment that breaks the steady flow of time. If he is shaping nails, the work is repetitive in the most soothing way, cutting, heating, drawing the metal, pointing one end, flattening the head, setting the finished piece aside, then beginning the next. And because such work is made of repetition, the hours pass almost without sharp edges, one piece like the last, one motion like the motion before it. And if he's making a hinge or a hook, there's a similar piece in the sequence. Warm the iron, bend it gently, turn it on the horn of the anvil, strike to refine the curve, return it to the coals, and let the heat soften it again. Medieval blacksmiths often worked not only with iron, freshly bought or traded, but with old metal, reshaped and reused. And so there may be pieces in his shop that have already lived one life as some other object, and now are slowly becoming something else beneath his hands. And even this transformation is not dramatic. It is quiet and practical, one useful form becoming another, through heat, time, and steady labor. As the morning continues, the village outside becomes more awake, and now and then faint sounds drift toward the workshop. A cart somewhere on the road, a dog barking once and then growing quiet, a voice passing at a distance, the rustle of movement from nearby homes. But these sounds remain soft at the edges of his day, while within the smithy, the main rhythm remains unchanged. The breath of the bellows, the glow of the forge, the small repeated music of hammer and anvil, the scrape of tongs, the soft hiss when a piece is cooled in water, and the blacksmith moves among these familiar elements as if he belongs to them, and they belong to him. Because after so many days and years, they are not separate things. The forge fire needs constant attention, and this too becomes part of the calm pattern, adding charcoal when needed, pushing it toward the center, drawing the piece of iron deeper into the hottest part, then bringing it out again And because the work depends on heat, and heat depends on patience, the blacksmith cannot truly rush, even if he wished to. The metal teaches its own pace, softening only when ready, cooling if left too long. And so the work itself keeps him within a steady rhythm. When he pauses briefly to drink water or eat a small piece of bread from home, he does so without ceremony. Perhaps sitting for a short while near the open doorway where the air is fresher and the light is cooler, looking out at nothing in particular. Perhaps the path, perhaps a passing hand, perhaps the stillness of a nearby wall in morning light. And after that small rest, he rises and goes back inside, where the warmth of the forge greets him again. By the middle of the day, the workshop has fully taken on the atmosphere of work. Warm, dry near the fire, touched everywhere by fine dust and soot, bright at the forge itself, and more shadowed in the corners. And the blacksmith continues in the same way as before, perhaps turning from nails to a latch, or from a latch to a repair on some simple farm tool, drawing out the metal where it must be longer, flattening it where it must be broad, punching a hole where a pin must pass through. Each step small and practical, each step requiring only modest attention and a repeated effort rather than any grand invention. Medieval smiths often made and repaired far more everyday objects than weapons or armor. And in a village setting, the work would most often serve fields, homes, doors, carts, and animals. And so perhaps in this sleepy day, he is mending an iron shoeing tool, or shaping a simple bracket, or fixing the edge of a hoe. And in each case, the process is similar enough that the mind does not need to leap from one way of working to another. The same heat, the same anvil, the same hammer, the same return to the coals. And because of this continuity, the hours remain smooth and connected. Outside, the sun climbs and the light becomes stronger, then steadier, then begins almost imperceptibly to soften toward the afternoon. But inside the smithy, much of the world is measured not by sunlight, but by the life of the forge and the sequence of tasks. And so time seems to pass in cycles rather than in straight lines. A piece is heated, worked, reheated, worked again, cooled, set aside. Then another begins, and each completed piece joins the small order of finished things on the bench or shelf. The blacksmith's hands know the feel of wood, handles polished by use, the weight of each hammer, the balance of the tongs, the slight difference between one set of jaws and another. And as he reaches for them, he does not need to think much at all, only to move in the way habit has taught him. And there is quiet ease in that, in doing work that has become almost as natural as walking. Now and then, he wipes his brow with the back of his wrist, or loosens his shoulders, and the air near the forge may feel dry and close compared with the cooler air at the doorway. Yet even this difference is familiar and ordinary, not uncomfortable so much as known. And when he steps for a moment toward the open door, the outside breeze feels soft against the warmth gathered on his skin. He may hear, faintly, the life of the village continuing its own routines. A mill cart somewhere, children at a distance, a call from one worker to another. But these things remain blurred and secondary, and soon he turns back to the iron again. If at some point he quenches a piece in the bucket, the hiss and steam are brief and expected, no more startling to him than the creak of a door or the crackle of coals. and the water darkens and cools around the metal, then settles once more. Some pieces require filing or scraping after forging, and if so, the blacksmith may move to the bench and work there for a while. The motion's smaller now, the sound softer, the light from the doorway falling across the worn wood as he smooths an edge, checks a hole, rubs away scale, and then returns the object to its place among the day's completed tasks. Little by little, the morning becomes afternoon, and little by little, the afternoon advances, but without any break in mood, because the work remains so consistent, so repetitive, so gently practical, that the day seems almost to hum along in a single, low note. He may pause again for a small meal, perhaps bread and cheese, perhaps an onion, perhaps just water, sitting in the doorway or on a stool in the shade. And while he eats, he feels the stillness that can exist even in the middle of the day. A stillness made not of silence, but of order. Each thing in its place, each life around him moving according to its own plain routine. Then, when the food is eaten, he goes back to work once more, perhaps with a last repair, perhaps with a few remaining nails or hooks. And in these final hours, the pace may seem even slower, not because he is weaker, but because the day itself has begun to lengthen and lean toward evening, and the light that enters the shop grows warmer, more golden, while the shadows at the edges of the room deepen. The forge may not need to burn as strongly now, depending on what remains to be done, and he adjusts it accordingly, allowing the coals to settle a little lower between reheatings, feeding them only as much as needed, and the sound of the bellows may come less often, though still in the same steady rhythm when it does come. He completes what is before him, not rushing to finish simply because the day is ending, but giving the same calm attention to the last piece as he gave to the first, because there is no benefit in hurrying at the end of a day shaped by patience from the beginning, when at last the last object is done, or as done as it needs to be for now. He begins the slow work of closing the day, which is itself another familiar sequence, setting finished pieces aside in order, returning tools to their hooks or places, brushing scale and dust from the anvil face, checking the bench, looking once at the bucket, once at the floor, once at the coal pile, and finally letting the forge settle down, reducing the fire, spreading the coals so the heat eases off, and watching the brightest glow dim by degrees. The workshop begins to change once more, as it changed in the morning, though now in the opposite direction, the heat becoming less intense. The active work sounds fading, the room returning to a quieter state, with only the occasional small crackle from the forge and the low ambient sounds of evening outside. He may sweep the floor a little, gathering ash, scale, bits of charcoal, and dust. The broom moving in long, quiet strokes, and this too has a gentle rhythm to it, back and forth, drawing the day's remains into a small pile, making the room orderly again for the next morning. Outside, the village is beginning to soften into evening. The light lies lower along the walls and path. The air beyond the doorway cools slightly. A bird may cross the yard. A cart may pass more slowly now than before. Someone may close a shutter. Somewhere a cooking fire may begin to scent the air. All these things happen gently, and the blacksmith notices them only in passing, because his own attention is still mostly on the final, small tasks within the shop. When these are done, he stands for a moment and looks around, not with pride, not with deep reflection, but simply taking in the familiar order of the place. The anvil, dark again, the hammers quiet, the bellows resting, the forge no longer roaring, but breathing only the faintest warmth, and the finished ironwork arranged where it should be. There is comfort in this completed order, in seeing a day's labor become stillness. He removes the apron, hangs it where it belongs, and steps outside, pulling the workshop door closed behind him. The evening air touches him softly, cooler than the air by the forge, and he breathes it in. The sky now is gentler than it was at noon, the light warm and beginning to fade, and the path back home is the same short path he walked in the early dawn, though it feels a little different now because of the evening quiet and the softer light. He walks slowly, his body carrying the plain heaviness that comes from a day of repeated movement, not pain and not strain exactly, but that familiar tiredness in the shoulders, arms, and back that belongs to steady, useful work. When he reaches home, he enters the small room and sets aside whatever he carries, perhaps a finished piece meant to be kept, perhaps simply the habit of work still resting in his hands, and the room greets him with its coolness and stillness. And perhaps he tends a small fire. Perhaps he eats a simple meal. Perhaps he sits for a little while in the fading light, or by a small flame, and all of it is done as simply as the rest of the day has been done, without hurry, without excitement, without any interruption to the calm, steady pattern that has carried him from before dawn to evening. The village outside grows quieter. The sky darkens by slow degrees. The sounds of life become fewer, then fewer still. He prepares for bed in the same quiet order with which he began the day, loosening clothes, setting them aside, lying down on the simple bed, feeling once again the wood floor beneath his feet, and then no longer, feeling the blanket settle over him, feeling the room become darker and more still. He listens for a little while to the small sounds of night, a faint wind, the house settling, a distant animal, and then even those things seem to drift farther away. Tomorrow the forge will wait again, the charcoal, the bellows, the first glow of fire, the first piece of iron in the coals, the same measured rise and fall of the hammer, the same breath of the workshop waking into heat. And there is peace in knowing that. Peace in the repeated shape of a blacksmith's life when told in such a quiet way. And as his breathing slows and the day softens into memory, the forge, the anvil, the tools, the warm workshop, the cool dawn, the slow evening, all of it settles gently in the mind. One calm, ordinary thing after another, until nothing remains but warmth, fading into coolness, work fading into rest, and the slow, steady movement into sleep.